Hi, welcome to the Bridge Podcasts. We hope you enjoy the following message. For more information on all that's happening at the Bridge Church, please visit www.bridge-church.com.
I was laughing at Pastor Nan in the car. She was talking about how she misses how her grandkids, when they were little, she said they used to run a boat the house. Something like that. Running about the house, I guess. Running a boat the house. By the way, there's a man here in a kilt. Did y'all see him? There he is! Is there another one? Another one! They're available for pictures if y'all want. I love that. That is the coolest thing. When we were at the restaurant, we heard bagpipes, so we got up and ran and took pictures, I love this nation. It's got some cute little things about it, I'm going to miss y'all, by the way. This has kind of gone by fast, hasn't it? It's like a whirlwind, and then we're off to London, and then we'll be preaching in Nice, France, and Paris. But I'm loving Scotland. So some of you were probably not here this morning. Raise your hand if you were not here. That's a bunch of y'all. So you're probably wondering, who is this girl that sounds like she's 9 years old? I don't look like a motivational speaker. I don't sound like a motivational speaker. I don't even sound like an adult, much less. I get that a lot. That's why I do a TV program and not a radio program, because I think people would turn it off. But I just think God has a sense of humor. But I have discovered it's not what comes out of your mouth, or it's not how you sound that matters so much. It's what's coming out of your mouth, right? So I want to just share with you a few things about success that I only know how to speak from experience. I've never just opened up a success book and taught from it, or even opened up the Bible and just taught a message. I only know how to speak from experience, what I get results in, and then I like to just show others. If this works, why don't we do it, So first of all, I want to take out my pocket calculator, and if you have your cell phone, if you would just take it out real quick, I just want to do a little exercise with you. If you have your cell phone and you have a calculator on the cell phone, go ahead and get to that app right now, or that little feature. I just want to kind of wake you up real quick, just to realize that we don't have time to waste. So first of all, on your calculator, if you will type in your age, whatever your age is. I already hear some moans, gosh. Just type in your age. Now push the times, multiply that times 365. Your age times 365. Now push equals. Okay, that number reveals to you your current age in days. That's how many days you've lived. Now leave that number on the screen and push minus. Now type in this number, 27,375. 27,375. Now push equals. Ignore the negative sign. That number on the screen reveals to you, if you live the average lifespan of 75, that's how many days you have left. I know, it's kind of alarming. It's kind of alarming. It's a shock. Well, an alarm is meant to wake us up, right? I know. When I first saw that, I realized I have lived more of my life than I have left. But alarms are meant to wake us up. And I just want you to realize, young people, you do not, you don't have as much time as you thought. You have more than me, but we don't have time to waste, right? In other words, you don't want to keep wasting and doing the same thing year after year after year. When time is ticking, we got to get moving, right? But do you ever feel like you've wasted time, you've wasted years? You're like, I'm so far behind now, I don't know how I could ever get caught up. Well, I was looking at different people who started later in life. There's so many. But you think about Ray Kroc. He started the McDonald's chain at 52 years old. At 52 years old, that's when he ran with his business idea to start the franchise for McDonald's. Think about this. Ronald Reagan was reelected as President of the United States at 73 years old. You think you're too old to run a company? He ran my nation at 73 years old. Henry Fonda won his first Oscar at 76 years old. There was a guy who, let me just tell you this. me, Terri Savelle Foy, I started my ministry at 38 years old. That was in 2008. I know you're doing the math. I'm 44. I'm 44 years old, but I can't even tell you what has happened in a matter of 6 years. I mean, God can speed things up. You know, there was a guy who at 66 years old, he didn't want to live off of his Social Security check, so he had this idea for a recipe. He went door to door all over trying to sell his recipe to different businesses, and nobody would buy his recipe. He knocked on 1,009 doors hoping to start this business. On the 1,010th attempt, someone believed in his dream. At 66 years old. I don't know about you, but thank God he didn't give up on his dream. What would my daughter eat? But you know, I want you to stop looking at the years you've lost, and let's look at the years you've got left. And do something with these years you've got left. Time is ticking. We just saw that. You don't have time to waste. And you know, you're never supposed to get to a certain level and just plateau. There's no limit to how high you can go. But it's up to you, and it's your ability to dream, to think, and to imagine. You know, I read a story about this famous mountain climbing resort in the Swiss Alps. Apparently, they cater to businesses, and they like to get businesses together, and they meet at the bottom of the mountain. They have this pep talk, and they encourage everybody to climb to the top of this mountain. Well, they all get their hiking gear on, they climb up the mountain, and about halfway up the mountain, there's this amazing alpine restaurant. So about 12 o'clock, they all go in there, they peel off the hiking gear, they sit down by the fire, they have a nice lunch, they drink a hot cup of coffee, and this is what it said. After they're all comfortable and full, less than half continue the climb to the top. And it said it's not because the climb is too difficult, it's not because they're unable to, it's because they're satisfied with where they've gone. In other words, they've tasted a little bit of success and they think, this is good enough. Don't be satisfied with where you are. No matter what level you're at, no matter what amount of success you've achieved in your life, there's no limit to how high you can go. And you've got to have a vision for your life. You know, statistics say that the average person who retires dies within 3 years of retirement. Why? Because they stop dreaming. They stop aspiring for something. So you've got to have a goal. You've got to have a dream, a vision for your life. And so I'm going to share with you what I call the 3 bones of success. And I just happen to have those bones with me. First of all, it's the bare bones. The bare bones of success. This is the first bone that you've got to have. And let me explain what the bare bones mean. I'm like Mary Poppins. You don't know what's going to pop out of here. But the bare bones, that's just a phrase that people use to describe the basics, the elements, the essentials of your life. Like, what are the essentials of your day-to-day life? In other words, what does your daily routine look like? Let me just describe it like this. You know, years ago, when I found myself in a rut, it was the worst time in my life. I had no dream, no vision for my life. This was back in 2002. My marriage was falling apart. Me and my husband separated. I, just figured we're going to get a divorce. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. Never dreamed I would be doing this. And all of a sudden, I thought, well, this is not the time to run from God. This is the time to run to God. So I went to my parents' house, and I just went and got a bunch of their CDs. Oops, can you hear me? Okay, just faith-building, motivational CDs. And all of a sudden, I heard this phrase from John Maxwell, who's one of my mentors. He made this statement. He said, if I could come to your house and watch you for 24 hours, I could tell whether or not you're going to be a success or a failure. And I thought, what? He said, you pick the day, but let me watch you from the moment you wake up until you go to bed at night. He said, just by observing you in one 24-hour period, I could tell in what direction your life is headed. He said, now, a lot of times when I say this at conferences, people get mad. They think my claim sounds... I think I better stay right here. He said, they think my claim sounds arrogant. He said, but no, the reason I say this is because the secret of your future is revealed in your daily agenda. I like to say it like this. The secret of your future is hidden in your daily routine. I even have a magazine called The Routine. because I'm so convinced when I changed my routine, it changed my whole life. When I just made a few small changes in my day-to-day life, it changed the entire direction of my life. You know, I think Jim Rohn said it the best. He said, success is something you attract by the person you become. Success is something you attract by the person you become. He said, if you want more, you must become more. He also said, if you don't have much, perhaps you haven't become much. Now, that's kind of painful. When I first heard that, I was like, ouch. But he said, you know, so many times we want better things. We want a better body, a better marriage, a better career, better salary, better opportunities. We want everything to be better, but the way to have better is to become better. You know, for example, can you imagine taking your biggest financial challenge to someone like Donald Trump? He would probably laugh that you even think it's a financial challenge, wouldn't he? He would laugh at my financial challenges. Why? Because of who he has become. Can y'all hear me okay? Okay. Because of who he has become. So the thing is, the size of the challenge depends on the size of the person. The key is to become bigger than our challenges, right? Well, success is something you attract by the person you become. So people always ask me, they say, Terri, how has your life changed so much? I went from being a ghostwriter, that means you write books for other people. I wrote 25 books for my dad, books for a pilot, for pastors, and I would drive to work, drive back home, drive to work, drive back home. My life was exactly the same year after year after year. If you were to ask me one year, you know, has your life changed? What happened this year? I'd be like, no, it's exactly like last year. Did your savings account change? No, I don't really have anything in my savings account. My life just was the same thing year after year. But all of a sudden, when I changed one simple thing about my routine, it changed my whole life. I heard we ran out of the CD, 5 things successful people do before 8 o'clock in the morning. But I just started doing 5 things every morning, and this was one of them. Was every morning I said, I'm going to make myself listen to a motivational message. And I told y'all this morning, the reason why is because faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the Word of God, right? Faith comes by hearing. And you know, you could say, well, I mean, I don't just listen to faith-building messages. I listen to success messages. I listen to John Maxwell. I listen to Dave Ramsey. I listen to different people teach me areas where I want to grow in finances, in fitness, in health, and, you know, all different areas. But, you know, you could say, well, Terri, I have listened to, 5,000 messages now. Can I stop? Well, I like to say it's kind of like brushing your teeth. Brought my personal toothbrush. But, I could say to you, I have brushed my teeth 50,000 times now. Can I stop? Well, I could, but number one, it's gross. And number two, eventually decay is going to set in, right? It won't be overnight, but it'll be a process of decline. Well, it's the same with building yourself up. You could say, I've been to church, 3,000 times now. I've listened to, 600 messages. Can I stop? Well, you can. But little by little, you're going to start to go backwards. Faith comes by hearing. Faith goes by not hearing. So when I just started doing this every single day, it began to change the way I thought. It began to change my ability to dream. I began to just wonder things. Like I told y'all this morning, I began to write down things in my dream book. I would just write, I wonder if I'll ever be on television. I don't know why, but for some reason I see myself on television. Well, I told you this morning, every single thing I wrote began to happen. And it all began one morning with one CD. One morning with one message. I am so convinced if you'll change your routine, you'll change your whole life. In fact, Joyce Meyer asked a man, he'd been in ministry for over 40 years. And she said, if you could help me in my ministry, to grow, to not go backwards, to, stay strong, she said, what kind of advice would you give me? She said he thought about it for a minute and he said, whatever you did to get to where you're at, don't stop doing it. Don't stop doing it. That's why this morning I was listening to a message in my hotel room. Yesterday I was listening to a message flying over here. Don't stop doing what brought the success. But I want you to adapt habits like this. Successful people take every opportunity to learn, to grow, to invest in themselves. In fact, I have a friend who pastors a church in Jackson, Mississippi. And he said that when he was 18 years old, he's sitting in math class, his senior year of high school, about to graduate and go off to university. And he said he thought that he had the world at his feet. He's getting ready to graduate, and he said he's sitting there in class one morning, and he heard this knock at the door, and this teacher walked in, and he said, for some reason, I knew at that moment my life was about to change. He said, I don't even know why I knew it. The teacher walked in, got him out of class, and he just found out that his father had died of a massive heart attack. He said, my whole world changed that morning in math class. He said, my dad was there for breakfast. He wasn't there for dinner. And he said, here I was 18 years old. He said, I graduated from high school, and then instead of going to university, he said, I went to Bible school because his dad was a pastor there. His dad had about 200 people in the church, and he thought, I've got to learn Bible school, and then come back home and help my mom pastor the church. So he said, I went off to Bible school, and I'm learning things about the Word of God. And he said, while I was there, all of a sudden I thought, I've got to get back home. I've got to go back to Mississippi and help my mom pastor the church. So at 19 years old, he flies back, takes over the church that his dad once had. He's pastoring 200 people, and he said all of a sudden he began to lose half the crowd. Half of the people who came to that church all those years quit coming. He said not only did he lose half the crowd, he lost half the income. And he thought, if I don't change something, I am going to lose everything my father built in 20 years. I'm going to lose it in 1 year. So he said, I was desperate for change. So he said, I went home and I got rid of every distraction. I got the TVs out of my house. I got everything out of my sight that would be a distraction. He said, I went and I bought a bunch of CDs. I bought success books. I bought leadership books. And he said, I set a goal for myself. I'm going to listen to 2 CDs every day, and I'm going to read 1 book a week. That's 52 books a year. And he said, I began to study people. He said, I would study Joel Osteen, how he used body language to get his point across. He said, I studied T.D. Jakes, how he used voice inflection to really make a point. He said, I would study people like John Maxwell, how he sits on a stool the whole time he teaches, but then when he really wants to make a point, he stands up. He said, I just began to absorb these things. And he said, even when I would get in the car with people to go somewhere, I would ask them, I'd say, do you mind if we listen to a message while we're driving? And they'd say, no, that's fine. He'd pull it out of his pocket and put it in. Do you know that guy is now 29 years old? His church is over 3,000 people, and he just paid off his new building, $11.5 million at 29 years old. He changed his routine, and it changed his whole life. Success is something you attract by the person you become. If you want more, you must become more. So just adopting a simple habit like this could change your whole life. Never think that this is a waste of time. I'm so convinced of this. In fact, I mentioned this morning how in America, the average American watches 6 hours of television every day. By the time you're 60 years old, that's 15 years of your life watching television. Or as I like to say, watching other people live their dream. 15 years of your life. You think about this. I don't know what it's like in Scotland, but in America, the average American drives 30 minutes to work and 30 minutes back home. 30 minutes to work, 30 minutes back home. After doing that for 5 years, that's 1,250 hours in your car, or the equivalent of a college education. What if you took that drive time to educate yourself, to keep growing, to learn, to build yourself up? Another story I heard was there's a guy named Jeff Arch who ran a karate school, and he said he was married, he had kids, but he still felt like something was missing inside. And so he said at 4 o'clock in the morning, he's sitting there watching a motivational speaker. And he said, all of a sudden, I'm watching this speaker, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not where I want to be in life. He said, how can I tell my kids to go after their dreams if I'm not even going to go after mine? So he said, I'm sitting there watching this motivational speaker, and I made myself 2 promises. He said, All of a sudden I said, I'm going to purchase what they're selling. I'm going to invest in myself. And number two, I'm going to make myself listen to everything that I just purchased. And he said, I don't want to run a karate school. I've always wanted to be a writer, like a script writer. So he said the product came in the mail, and he kept his promise. He said, every day I listened. Every day I listened. Do you hear that? Every day I listened. He changed his routine. And he said, all of a sudden, I began to write. He said, I wrote a screenplay in less than a month. I sold it in less than 3 months for $250,000. It went on to become a mega hit, and I received an Oscar nomination for Best Screenplay. It was a mega hit with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan called Sleepless in Seattle. He changed his routine, and it changed his whole life, changed his destiny, all because he just said to himself, I'm not just going to sit back and watch everybody else live their dreams. I'm going to do something to build myself up. It's amazing what can happen if you just set a goal. I told everyone this morning, set a goal for the next 21 days. You're going to make yourself do this. Normally I have several products we can at least, give you that you could start learning and growing, things about success, but we sold out of everything. But I did want to say that we have a free podcast. So if you even just go online, watch a free podcast, it's 8 minutes. 8 minutes, build yourself up for the day. Or watch 2 of them. But do something to grow. I have a friend who, he pastors one of the largest churches in America, one of the fastest growing churches in America, in St. Louis. And he said, we were, in a service like this, and he said, I have spent time with Bill Gates, Donald Trump, John Maxwell, T.D. Jakes, and Michael Jordan. And we were all just like, you are kidding. And he goes, but I've never met any of them. He said, but I spend time with them every day on my way to work and on my way back home. He has the fastest growing church in America. What could happen if you would get a hold of the bare bones? In fact, think about the statement that John Maxwell made. Imagine one of these young people over here coming to your house and watching you for 24 hours. Because they're saying, I want to be a success. I want to learn from you. Can I just watch you for 24 hours? What would you want them to see about your daily schedule? Think of it in those terms. Or if someone wanted to ask you, I've had people ask me on interviews, can you walk us through your day? What's your day like? I don't have to question it. I know exactly 5 things I do every single day. And so it was easy for me to just spout that out. But one of them is, every day, listen to something to build yourself up. You ready for the second bone? Okay, the second bone is wishbone. Wishbone. You have to have wishbone. What is that? It's vision. You have to have a vision for your life. I was telling them this morning, Proverbs 29:18 says, where there is no vision, the people perish. What does perish mean? Die. What does die mean? Die. If you don't have a vision, you're dying on the inside. It's amazing how even way back years ago, Mark Twain, he said, I could teach anybody how to get what they want in life. Problem is, I can't find anybody who can tell me what they truly want. Like we ran out of these, but we have the Imagine 5 Years From Now notebook. This notebook, is where you put pictures of what you're believing for, your dreams, your goals. If you were to give this notebook to a child and just say, tell me what you want for Christmas. Put pictures in here of what you want. They would probably fill this thing up and say, give me another one. But you give this to an adult, and it will sit on their desk or in a drawer somewhere for a year with nothing in it. Why? Because we've stopped dreaming. We don't even give ourselves permission to dream because we always want to know how. I don't know how this could ever happen, so I might as well not dream it. Let me just tell you, I don't have a clue how any of my dreams are going to happen, but that doesn't stop them from happening. Your job is to write the vision, put it on paper. In fact, I was sharing this morning, your chance of success increases by 98% when you put your dreams in writing. In fact, there was a professor at Virginia Tech. I'm going to walk here and see if it will not cut out. This professor at Virginia Tech, he did research on successful people and goal setting. He said he found that people who write their dreams and goals, they earn 9 times as much as those who don't. He also found when he walked up to just random people on the street, he just asked them one question. He said, what are your dreams for life? What are your goals for life? He said 80% of the people he asked said, I don't know, I don't have any dreams. 80%. 16% said, I have some dreams, but I've never written them down. 3% said, I have dreams, I've written them at some point, but I don't know where they are. 1% said, I have dreams, I've written them down, and I review them on a consistent basis. He said, you know who the 1% were? Millionaires. Every single one of them were millionaires. And the clues these millionaires left for us. Number 1, I have dreams. Number 2, I write them down. And number 3, I keep them before my eyes. Consistently. Out of sight is out of mind. Many of you have probably read the book by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich. It's I don't know how many millions of copies have sold all over the world. But do you know, years ago, back in the early 1900s, Andrew Carnegie hired Napoleon Hill to do research for him, to write that book. And he said, Napoleon, he said, I want you to go out and interview 500 millionaires, 500 of the world's wealthiest people at that time. And he said, I want you to discover if any of them have one common trait that's made them so successful. And he told him, he said, this is going to take a while, because this was back in the early 1900s, so they couldn't just hop on a plane and fly all over the world. So he said, it's going to take you about 20 years to write this book. Actually, it took him 25 years to write Think and Grow Rich. So he went out and he interviewed people like Alexander Graham Bell, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Theodore Roosevelt, John D. Rockefeller, John Wanamaker, Charles Schwab. He interviewed 500 millionaires, and he came back to Andrew Carnegie, and he said, they do. They have something in common. He said, every single one of them have clearly defined written goals. Clearly defined written goals. That's not a coincidence, is it? What could happen if you would get more specific about what you want to see happen in your life? I like to share this story as encouragement. In fact, a lot of times I think people bring me in to teach success because it gives people hope that, dear God, if Legally Blonde can do it, I can do it. But, I'm telling you, years ago, me and my husband, I was pregnant with our daughter Cassidy, and we were getting ready to move into a different house, or we wanted to move into a house, and we wanted a bigger house. So we went and we met with the builder, and this was kind of outside of our range, financially. But we were just hoping we could raise enough money to get in this house. We've been married for 5 years, and in 5 years' time, my husband and I had saved $1,000. In 5 years of marriage, we had saved $1,000. So we go and we meet with the builder. He tells us, what it's going to cost. He does the math. And he said, I said, what would we have to put down on this house, like a down payment? I said, what would we have to put down on this house in order to get our monthly payments to a number that we could afford? So he did the math, and he said $48,000. And we both gulped real hard, and we said, okay. And he goes, you have $48,000? I said, we will have $48,000. He said, you'll have $48,000 in 5 months. Because they were going to start building, and it was going to take 5 months to build the house. He said, you're telling me you'll have $48,000 in 5 months? I said, yes. And so we signed the contract saying we will have this money. So my husband and I walked out to the car. We fainted. We got up. We got in the car. And we both just looked at each other like, what did we just do? Like, we're idiots. What did we just do? We just signed our names to a contract. And we went home, and so I went online, I didn't go online. This was in 1997. I just went to like a little magazine place, and I ripped out a picture of a house, and I put on there $48,000. And on my printer, I put on there 48, 47, 46, 45, all the way down to $1,000. So I printed the vision for our house. Well, then we put it on the refrigerator. We put one on my nightstand. I put one in my day timer back then. I put one on my husband's. I would take it to work with me every single day. We would pray over this vision every day. Not a day went by. And then we took the $1,000 from our savings account. We took it out, and we gave it in an offering. We gave it away. Now, most people would say, that's stupid. But I was telling you this morning, my dad taught me. He said, you may not have what you need, but you are never without the seed that will produce it. So we thought that $1,000 doesn't even make a dent in $48,000. We might as well sow it as seed. So we sowed that seed, and then we had no thousands. So we started asking God for opportunities to make money. We didn't just expect someone to walk up and say, God told me to give you, $48,000. We asked God to give us opportunities to make money. And we both had full-time jobs, working full-time. I'm pregnant, and I'm asking God to give me opportunities. So we had a garage sale, which I don't think you call it that here. Do you? You know what that is? Where you just pull stuff out of your house and sell it out of your garage, So we sold all this stuff, I think we made $1,000. Well, then my husband, he would work all day long, and then when he got off work, he would get a little paint can and a paintbrush and some stencil, and he would walk door to door in our neighborhood, knock on their doors and ask them, can I paint your address numbers on the curb for $5? He would come home with $25. Sometimes he'd come home with $100. We were like, cha-ching, we're loaded. Well, then I was a ghostwriter at the time, so I wrote a small book for a pilot and a small book for a pastor. I think I made $4,000, so we marked out. Well, then I speak French, so I thought, okay, I could teach kids French. So I started telling everybody, do you want your kids to learn French? And someone were like, yeah. So I said, bring them over on Saturday mornings. I'll teach them French. So they would pay me to teach their kids French. Well, then my husband, he went to an auction, and he bought a pinball machine, the old pinball machines. He bought one for $75. He put an ad in the newspaper, and he sold it for $150. So then he bought 2 machines and doubled his money, made $300. We just kept adding up the money. Well, then we sold our current house and made $22,000 selling that house. So we marked it out. We got up to $38,600 in 5 months. We met with the bank. We went in there to talk to them, and the lady did the math, and she said, well, they've come down on the amount you need. She said, you actually need $38,000 on this house. We had $38,600. So in other words, it's amazing. So in other words, we had more than enough, right, to move in our house. Well, first of all, I would give all the glory to God because he's the one who gave us ideas because we asked him. You have not because you ask not. We started just asking God for opportunities. And it's amazing. When you get a clear, compelling vision, it is amazing what you can accomplish when that vision is so strong. I was so determined to get in that house before I had the baby. In fact, we moved in, and 2 weeks later, I gave birth. But, I would love to end the story right there and for all of you to think, that Terri girl, she is amazing. But I have to tell you the rest of the story. We moved in the house. I had Cassidy. Afterwards, I went back to work. Rodney went back to work. We got back into our routine. Guess how much money we saved? Nothing. Years went by. Guess how much we saved? Nothing. Why? No vision. We raised $38,600 in 5 months. And then years went by with nothing in our savings account. Where there is no vision for your money, it will perish too. So I'm just telling you, you have to have a vision for every area of your life. In fact, I heard a story not too long ago about a guy who, he said at Thanksgiving, y'all don't celebrate Thanksgiving. At Thanksgiving in November, he would climb up in his attic and get the Christmas boxes down out of the attic. And, he'd decorate the Christmas tree. And then when Christmas was over, he'd take all the ornaments down, put them in the boxes. But he said before he packed them up in the attic, he would get out a piece of paper and write his New Year's goals. Well, he would put them in an envelope, put them in the boxes with those ornaments, and pack them away until next Thanksgiving. A year would go by. He'd get the boxes out, open up that envelope, and see if his dreams had come true. Do you think they did? Now, he's ahead of most of the world by the fact that he wrote his dreams. But none of them happened because they weren't before his eyes. Out of sight is out of mind. You have to keep that dream before your eyes at all time. That's why, so many people were telling me, I can't carry this thing around all the time. So we came out with the Dreams and Goals app for your iPhone. The Android's coming out like next month. But we've got that because like here, while I'm on the road like this, I just look at my dreams, I scroll through them and pray over them, speak them out loud. Do something. Go to the store, get your own binder, or you can go online and order ours. But do something to get your dreams on paper. The Bible says, write the vision, make it plain on paper. So you got to do something. Have y'all heard of Joel Osteen? His father John, years ago, before he went to heaven, he was in the hospital having open heart surgery. And he told Joel, he said, Joel, I want you to go home and get my tennis shoes. He was a petite man. And maybe not quite that small, but I couldn't fit him. But he told Joel, he said, Joel, I want you to go home and get my tennis shoes. And he said, I want you to put them here in the hospital so I can look at those shoes. He was about to have open heart surgery. He said, these shoes are my vision that I am going to walk out of this hospital and I am going to be jogging again. Well, he kept his eyes focused on those shoes. He not only survived open heart surgery, but he lived another 12 years after that surgery. It's amazing the power of vision. I have a vision board in my office, and I love it. It's huge. It's this giant vision board, but I love it because every day when I look up from my desk, I see where I'm headed. I see exactly where I want this organization to go. But you have to do the same thing. I have one at home. I have one in the laundry room, a big giant board. Even in my bathroom, when you open up the cabinet to get perfume and different things, I have pictures of what I'm believing for. I have the dream books. We have the app. Constantly surround yourself with vision. Another story is some friends of mine who were believing to have a baby, and for years they could not get pregnant, but they would not give up on that dream. Doctors told them, you're never going to have kids, but they just kept saying, we are going to have children. We will not give up on this dream. So the husband one day, he went out to the mailbox, and all of a sudden there were 2 diapers in there. And Huggies was doing this promotional, advertising, and they sent out these diapers to people. Well, when he saw those diapers, he said, that's my vision that we will have children. So he said he took these 2 diapers, he put them on his desk at work, so that every day he stayed focused on that vision, that I am not giving up, we will have children. All of a sudden, he gets a phone call from a Christian adoption agency, and they said, we really believe that you are the perfect parents for this adoption. He said, tell me about them. They started to describe it. Anyway, it was twins. And so he has those twins today. They're now 15 years old. But he said, we never gave up on that vision. But you have to surround yourself with a vision. The thing is, the business world, they understand this. Back when John F. Kennedy had a vision to land a man on the moon, do you know at the NASA headquarters, they actually had a picture painted or drawn, however, on the wall at NASA headquarters. It went from the ceiling to the floor, and it was a picture of a man landing on the moon with the American flag. So every single day, when the employees came to work, they saw vision. No one was confused. This is success. If we can do this, we've succeeded. So every single day, they're looking at vision. Do you know they actually achieved this 2 years ahead of schedule? What would happen if you surround yourself with a vision? Every single day, before you head out the door to work, you do something to look at your dream, to pray over that dream. And then my last bone to pick with you is it's backbone. You gotta have backbone. So we have the bare bones, we have wishbone, and we have backbone. Now, what in the world do I mean by you gotta have backbone? In other words, you gotta fight for your dream. Ecclesiastes even says in the Bible, a dream comes about with much business and painful effort. I'm the type person who typically keeps everything inside. I don't normally tell people when I'm going through a hard time or, when I've been through major challenges in my life, I just kind of keep it all inside. But I remember years ago, I was just like at this breaking point, back when everything was falling apart. And I went over to my mom and dad's house, and my dad's a minister, and I went over to their house, and I just said, Dad, I just can't take it anymore. I just feel like quitting. And my dad looked at me and he said, you are not a quitter. You understand me? He said, the Savelles are not quitters. Quitting is not in your blood. You're going to make it. And I just stood there and he said, what are you thinking? I said, I think I'm adopted. But I'm just telling you, I have had to learn to fight for my dreams. I have had to learn to develop backbone and go for my dreams no matter how impossible they look. And you're going to have to do the same thing. You know, Thomas Edison even said, he said, most of life's failures are those who didn't realize how close they were to success when they gave up. You've probably heard Thomas Edison, I've heard so many different numbers that it took him like 10,000 attempts to invent the light bulb. But he just says, most people don't realize how close they are to success when they give up. My dad says it like this: when you're on the verge of quitting the most, that's always an indication that Satan has fired his last shot. And if this one doesn't get you, it's over. You win. So when you feel like giving up the most, that's always the biggest indication you're just about to see your breakthrough. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. You know, you think about different companies, like Aunt Jemima. I don't know if you have that here. It's a syrup. Do you have that? Syrup? Did you know they actually went bankrupt 3 times? Pepsi Cola, they went bankrupt 3 times. Quaker Oats went bankrupt 3 times. Henry Ford went bankrupt 5 times. Wrigley's Gum went bankrupt 3 times. Walt Disney went bankrupt 7 times. What's your excuse? You're a little low on money, huh? But you know, you think about this. I heard about a company who they were trying to come up with a formula for a cleaning product, and they kept trying and failing and trying and failing. 408 times they tried, and they kept failing. On the 409th attempt, they came up with Formula 409. They wouldn't give up on their dream. 408 times. Can you imagine? Trying to mix the formula, and it's still not working. So they just decided, let's call it Formula 409. So I want you to realize you're going to have to fight for your dreams. You know, you have an enemy. His name is Satan. He doesn't show up in a red costume on Friday the 13th and a pitchfork and say, I'm here to, you know, scare you a little bit. No, he actually comes disguised, but he has a plan for your life also. John 10:10 tells us his plan is to kill, steal, and destroy your life. When you get a dream, you get a vision from God, Satan doesn't just roll over and play dead and let you be successful. You have to fight for that dream. But it's so worth it. Let me close out with this story about a little girl who had to fight for her dreams. This little girl's name is Liz. This was back in the 80s. Liz, she said that her dad left when she was 6 years old. Her mom had 2 jobs trying to earn money, and she kept telling her, Liz, I'm working 2 jobs because I'm believing one day I'm going to be able to afford to put you through college, and then you can get a good job. And she said, my dream is one day you're going to take Mama on a trip around the world. So she would always tell Liz this. So Liz understood her mom has to work 2 jobs to afford everything. Well, Liz had that vision. She kept saying, one day I'm going to take my mama on a trip around the world. Well, all of a sudden, Liz's aunt came to her. And she said, you know, since your mom's working all the time, you're at home by yourself. She said, I think you should join the Girl Scouts. Now, y'all don't have the Girl Scouts, do you? You do? That's cute. So she said, I want you to join the Girl Scouts because it'll give you something to do and you'll make friends. And so Liz joins the Girl Scouts. And as soon as she joins this little group, she finds out there's a contest. Whoever sells the most cookies wins a trip for 2 around the world. So that was all Liz needed. That was her vision, her wishbone. She said, I am determined I'm going to win this trip and take Mama on a trip around the world. She said, I don't have to wait till I get out of college, get a good job. I'm going to win this thing now. So at 11 years old, so anyway, when she would get out of school, she would go knock on the apartment complex. They lived in an apartment, so she would knock on all the doors and try to sell boxes of cookies. Every single day she knocked on doors. Well, after a while, the management at the office, they started getting so many complaints because when people would turn her down, she'd go back the next day, knock on the door, try to sell cookies. So the management told her, they said, Liz, we're not going to stop you from selling cookies, but you've got to stop going door to door. They said, we're going to let you set up a little booth in the foyer here in the lobby, You can sell your cookies right here. So Liz said, that works out better. Everybody has to come to me instead of me going to them. So she set up this little table and had her cookies all set up, and she would wear her uniform and stuff. But she also changed her sales strategy. Instead of saying, would you like to buy some cookies? She would say, would you like to invest in me? She said, my dream is to take my mom on a trip around the world. See, my mom works 2 jobs, and her dream is to one day see the world, and I want to take her on that. Well, by the time she's finished, everybody's crying, and they said on average, people bought 12 boxes of cookies. Not 12 cookies, 12 boxes. Well, she sold to everybody in that complex, so then she went to another complex and would set up her little table. She actually sold over 10,000 boxes of cookies. She crushed the record and won the contest. Well, after 3 or 4 years of selling cookies, she sold 44,000 boxes of cookies. People began hearing about her sales strategy. Well, all of a sudden, Disney comes to her, and they said, we want to make a film about you. But it wasn't a film that you go watch like at the movies. It was a training video to teach their employees how to sell. So Liz, all the royalties from this video went to Liz. She became a speaker at conferences. Her mom went from 2 jobs to 1 job. Liz had enough college money, and she took her mom around the world twice by the age of 13. Is that amazing? But you know what she had? She had backbone. She had persistence. First of all, she had vision. She had a wishbone. I am going to win this trip, and I am determined to take my mom. She also had the bare bones. Every single day, they said, she would iron her uniform, look her best. She would practice in the mirror, giving her little sales speech. Every day, she would sell her cookies. But she was persistent. She was determined to not give up until that dream come to pass. Well, I heard Joyce Meyer say this one time. She said, you can be pitiful or you can be powerful, but you're not going to be both. And one of the things about success, you can't ever, ever, ever feel sorry for yourself. There's always somebody out there who has it worse than you, who's been through more than you. All of us have our stories. We all have the things we've been through. But like Joyce said, you can be pitiful or you can be powerful. You can have excuses or you can have results. Which one is it going to be? And I just want to challenge you to pick yourself up. Maybe you feel like you've been knocked down a few times. And I said this morning, you feel like your age has been a distraction. You think I'm too old now. Or you look at years and you say, I've wasted too many years. It's too late. It's never too late to be what you might have been. It's never too late. And the thing is, God is expecting you to fulfill an assignment. I don't want to get to heaven. This is the thing. I heard John Bevere, who's been here, I heard John Bevere make this statement. He said, when judgment day comes, and it's going to come, when every single one of us are going to stand before God and you're going to give an account for your life. He said, but when that day comes, you're not going to be held accountable for what you did on earth. And I was confused. I said, what? He said, no, you're going to be held accountable for what you were called to do on earth. What you were called to do and what you did could be 2 different things. In other words, God may say, I called you to sing. Why didn't you sing? And you say, well, I just didn't think my voice was that good. Yeah, but I called you to sing. Why didn't you use your voice? God may say, I called you to start a business. Why didn't you start the business? You say, well, the bank turned me down. Well, why didn't you go to another bank? I called you to write a book. Why didn't you write that book? Well, I didn't have a publisher. Well, why didn't you self-publish it? Why didn't you seek out another publisher? There's millions of publishers. Why didn't you do that? I called you to teach. Why didn't you teach? Well, I got married young and I just never... why didn't you go back to school? God's going to hold us accountable for what we were called to do. And that's what compels me to stay focused on my vision, because I don't want to stand before God and say, God, I'm sorry I didn't quite do everything you wanted me to do. I was just a little bit insecure. I was a little shy. I was kind of, embarrassed of my voice. No, I'm going to stand before God and say, I pushed myself out of my comfort zone. I made myself do what I was called to do. And I want the same thing for you. Don't ever give up on your dreams. I hope all of you have been inspired this weekend, and some of you who just came tonight, I hope that you feel that stirring on the inside of you, because like it or not, that's God speaking to you. He's stirring things up on the inside of you and saying, get your dreams back. Get your vision back. Get your hope back. You know, God's word says he is no respecter of persons. God doesn't go down the road saying, I love you and I love you not. I love you and I love you not. No, he loves everybody. And he has a plan for everybody. So I'm praying that you are going to get fired up to go after that dream. And you know, I love what Les Brown said. He said, go after your dreams as if your life depends on it. Why? Because it does. Did y'all receive that? Okay. Now, we ran out of product, but if you want to receive our magazine free of charge, it's a free magazine, and then I can send you monthly encouragement, absolutely free. I can send it by mail or email. If you'll raise your hand, they can give you a little card to fill out. You won't get junk mail. You'll just get the magazine and you'll get encouragement. So if you want that, raise your hand, and the ushers have that. If you just fill it out, I'll take it back home. And however you prefer, email or if you want the letter or the magazine like in your hands. Or you can actually download it on your iPad, whatever you want. So I do want to just take a moment, though, after you fill that out. I'm sorry we ran out of product. I like to make sure we have enough just because Lester Sumrall said never go somewhere without leaving something behind, you know. But like I said, you can always listen to things on the website or you can order stuff on the website. It's real simple. It's Terri.com, Terri.com. So have y'all had fun tonight? I sure have enjoyed being with you. This has been a lot of fun, and I could just see, you know, you've been so open and so just listening intently, I could tell. And I just pray that when you go home, you stay inspired. You know, in fact, think about tomorrow morning when you wake up. It's Monday morning. Think of one habit that you can change about your day. If it's go online, download a podcast. If it's CDs you've already got, do something every day to grow, to stretch. And start tomorrow morning. And think, today you already built yourself up, so there's day one. Tomorrow's day two.
Thanks for listening. Remember to visit our website, www.bridge-church.com, and connect with us via Facebook and Twitter.